Good evening, Samira. Linda, you can hear me, right?
I sure can, yes.
Yep.
There's Karen. Good evening, Karen.
And Samira says, good evening. Hello, Samira.
Hi, Karen.
Okay. So before we get started, I do have a couple of announcements, mostly about discovering Buddhism. So this is our 5th class of our 6th for Wisdom of Emptiness. And then we will, so next week, October 19th will be our last class. And then we take a 1-week break. And then we start up again on November 2nd for Introduction to Tantra with Dr. Don Brown and a very special guest. We have a visiting teacher joining us virtually, Venerable George Chernoff. And so Don will begin the Tantra and end it, and Venerable George will be teaching the Discovering Buddhism Tantra classes right in the middle. So that'll be a nice treat. We will not have class on the Monday of Thanksgiving week, so November 23rd. And in addition to teaching a couple of the Discovering Buddhism classes when Venerable George is here, he will also be doing some other teachings as well. And it just so happens he will be teaching on transforming problems into happiness, as well as the Heart Sutra. So perfect. And that's really all I have as far as announcements go. So hopefully you'll join us for next week's class to wrap up the Wisdom of Emptiness. And now I'll go ahead and turn it over to Hemant for the rest of the class.
Well, thank you, Linda, as always. Okay, guys, so let's do our 3 prostrations first, mentally. And if you're willing to do it while you're seated there and want to do 3 prostrations, that would be wonderful. So I'm going to just go ahead and do it. Om Namo Manjushriye Namo Sushriye Namo Tamashriye Soha. Om Namo Manjushriye Namo Sushriye Namo Tamashriye Soha. Om Namo Manjushriye Namo Sushriye. Okay, great. So, as always, we'll bring ourselves to the session today, doing a little breathing exercise, and then that will lead into a nice motivation, setting the intention, okay? So everybody now knows the typical position you want to take. The most important piece is that you keep your back straight, okay? Depending on how you're sitting down on the floor or on your chair, you want to have your legs crossed properly or sit or on the floor. Obviously, relaxed arms with the hands, right hand on top of your left and the thumbs touching each other. Your mouth and your jaw are relaxed and the tongue is touching on top of the palate behind the teeth. Relaxed again, and your eyes, it is suggested to keep slightly open, but for those that can't, you can close them. Okay, so I invite you to do, just take a nice, be comfortable and just do a nice scanning of your body. See if there are any tension anywhere. You want to relax yourself. Bring your mind to the present. And what we're going to do is you're going to breathe in and out. And for every inhalation, you just keep your inhalation and exhalation. You just keep your mind focused on your breath. Breath is considered neutral. And so it's something that you can keep your eyes, mind on focused on it. Don't try to control your breathing in any way. Just let it come and go naturally. Let's just keep your mind on the breath. This is a great way to learn concentration. You will notice that if your mind is excited, it starts to run a little bit, starts to see some visuals, or it starts to get into a story, just observe it, let it go, and bring it back. You bring your mind back to your focus on your breath. Now let's set the intention for this class today. And let's take a moment to cultivate this motivation for being here that will transform every effort you make here into a cause for you and every other living beings to experience the pacification of all misery and the perfection of every quality, including happiness. This ultimate objective is not beyond your ability to achieve. Buddhahood is defined as the elimination of suffering and the cultivation of every quality, including happiness. The Buddha demonstrated that this attainment is possible for anyone and everyone, and he taught his followers how to do it. The essence of those teachings is to cultivate enthusiastically disillusionment with cyclic existence, cyclic life, altruism that does not exclude a single living being, and with the view that perceives the non-inherent existence of everything. His teaching continues to the present, and we are here today to listen to and understand the teaching on how to cultivate this view. We are therefore engaged in that very act that ultimately results in Buddhahood. And once you achieve Buddhahood, you engage effortlessly and spontaneously in enlightening activity that results in everyone's achieving Buddhahood. In this way, you're creating the cause for your own and everyone else's ultimate benefit. However, none of this can happen if you're not motivated to make it happen. If you're here merely to increase your knowledge so that you may be well thought of or sharpen your intelligence, then you might succeed, but you will not be creating the causes for Buddhahood. As Buddhahood exceeds all accomplishments, ensures that your effort here today are motivated just to achieve that. So let's bring your attention back to the class. Thank you. Let's see. We did this, okay? So the plan for today, we're going to go through the review of sessions 3 and 4. I'm not going to go through 1 and 2. I'll briefly mention some words so people can link everything together. And then we're going to go through a few more definitions. We're going to look at emptiness and the 5 Mahayana paths. Then we're going to start to look at the heart of the perfection of wisdom, the Heart Sutra. Possibly there's a 3 to 5 minute video that if it all works out, that will be just perfect segue in certain section of the Heart Sutra. This is by Thupten Jinpa. He's the translator for His Holiness. When you see his videos, you see him all the time. And then we'll continue with the Heart Sutra all the way to finish. And then time permitting, I may make some comments, go through some questions. And at the end, I have a meditation that I found. I belong to a group in Facebook with Venerable Rene Fusé, and I'll give you his introduction when we get there. And I wrote him an email about something he's been teaching Mahabhutra and Lamrim, and I found his explanation of little piece of emptiness that I found was really, really very good, in very easy terms, not too much logic, just plain English. And it answers some basic questions and how to view this. And I thought that would be just perfect meditation, but in a way you're just listening and just contemplating on it, and then we'll dedicate. That's the intent for the classes today, okay? So, again, it's very important to me and for you that anytime I'm going through the class, there are pockets of teachings that may just sway you totally into that particular well, I would say, and not make the connection. Why are you taking this module in the first place? We are here to learn this profound teaching. This is not just something small, it is considered a profound teaching. Buddha himself turned the wheel, third wheel, and he taught about this particular subject matter. And so, and it's always in your mind, how is it important to you? Why do they say that this is such an important topic? And what does it mean? Those are the things you should kind of contemplate as I'm going through it, because it's very easy to get into the logical things and the examples and the flame and the cup and all that stuff, and kind of lose why we are doing that in the first place. And so keep that in mind at all times. And just remember that we do know, just from the classes you've attended so far, at least I hope that you understand that the ultimate reality, there are many words for it, right? We say shunyata, we say selflessness, emptiness, ultimate truth, egolessness. These are all words used in different literature meaning the same thing. It means empty of true existence. In other words, inherent existence. Okay, again, nowhere does it say that we don't exist, and don't think non-existence means a blank paper. What it's saying is we concretize things. We make a very solid view. Everything is very concrete to us. And this is a teaching to see how things truly exist. And we'll go through some of these things again. And the whole idea is to eradicate this fundamental confusion we have about who we are, this very concrete I. The things we look at, we see it in a very exaggerated view. Everything exists the way you see it, and that's how we label it, and we see ourselves that way. So we don't see the true nature of things, okay, which leads to many obstacles. This is one of the goals, to remove those obstacles. So now you should be thinking in your mind, how does it remove the obstacles? Okay, so as I'm going through this review, you will make those points in your mind. If it removes ignorance, which is the fundamental problem, then the ignorance of what? Not a simple ignorance, but conception of active ignorance, of not knowing how things are. And because of that, we latch onto this concrete I, and then we visualize everything. It's mine, I like it, I don't like it, he disrespects me. Oh, if I say this, this is what he or she would do. Now we start the whole story. And this becomes a chatter in your mind. This brings up anxiety in your mind. And ultimately what happens is you're not a happy camper and you have anxiety. This is a very profound subject. If you once you start to understand how things are, you loosen up. You see how things are, and you loosen up, and you kind of come in. You portray yourself in a very nice, calm, controlled manner because you see how things are, and so you don't get latched onto the story so quickly. That's one small piece of it, right? So what happens then is once you have this kind of calmness and peaceness in your mind, and you see how things exist, then what happens is you don't cling and you don't grasp, right? Because the attachment is loosened up, the ignorance is going away, or the aversion is going away. And so then you don't latch onto this negative thoughts in your head. And therefore you loosen your cycle of birth and death. And if you get good at this, and if you meditate, And then what happens? You can actually get enlightened. You can liberate yourself. And that is the goal. Okay, so you can see how a simple subject of how to view things ultimately can lead you to that. And everything that you've studied in the DB class, how it relates to how things are. So we'll go through that a little bit. Again, okay, so be free from suffering is the goal. And then finally, become fully awakened. And then have perfect compassion, wisdom, which is wisdom of emptiness, and the power meaning bodhicitta, to help others. Okay, so that's the whole idea. So every time I go through this, and you might see me repeat some of these words, like I got it, Hemant, but put this in back of your mind at all times. Just remember, why are we learning? So even if I go into logic, or this is how cause and effect works and all that, remember, it's just trying to teach you that we are accustomed to seeing things a certain way, and to unravel that, this logic is absolutely necessary so you can come and it proves to yourself and your mind that this is the way really things are, but we are messed up and we don't see it that way. That's the whole idea of this logic. And so because it's a training, it's a class, it's good to know the history, it's good to know who said it, what views we are following, what school it comes from, and how it all started. So we go through all of that, right? So that's the point, okay? So we already went through that. The ghost is here, okay, no problem. So now, let's start with the session 3. First of all, in session 1, I just gave you a little background, little introductory. In session 2, we talked a lot about ignorance and your personal identity and what does the ignorance mean and that kind of stuff. But we really got into the nitty-gritty of the logical way of looking for those things that are causing us the problem. And we started with the 4-point analysis, okay? And so just to take a look, we'll go through this 4-point analysis, emptiness examples, a little bit here and there, and then we'll finish up, talk a little bit about dependent arising, and then we had done a meditation on 4-point analysis and the I, okay? So just to give you a quick overview of 4-point analysis, okay? What in this whole analysis is that we are searching for this inherent I that we seem to live with. And so the very first point in the logic, in the Aristotelian philosophy, they call this tetralemma. They put 4 logical points. First, you identify and affirm what is it that you're trying to look for or negate. Then you look for it and confirm with whether it exists or not. You negate it, and then you find out if it doesn't exist, what are the results. So this is a logical way of looking at things. So first thing we do is we try to understand what is it that we're looking for. We're looking for I, but everyone in the class may think of that I a little differently. Some may have a different vision of I, some may feel the I right in the chest. Think of the I that if somebody were to tell you right now that you stole my wallet and you haven't, and I'm blaming you in front of your friends right now. Okay, I'm telling you, Dinesh or Doug or Linda, you took that money from Kadampa Center. You know, I saw you. Where does it hurt? What is that hurts? That's the I we are looking for. So then somebody will come and say, okay. I've heard a lot of this. We know that I does not exist, and we know that kind of answer. We come to that conclusion. But some people may think it is in the mind. Some people may think it's in the body. Some people say, come on, I'm not stupid. It's the combination, this whole package. That's who I am. This is everything that I have, my mind, my body, that's who I am. And so this is the logic that goes through that steps and tells you, let's look for it. See if you can find it. Whether if you decide it is in relationship to body and mind complex, is it independently of that? Is it found in the aggregates of things, in your aggregates, mind, feelings, discrimination, consciousness? Or if you can't find it there, that it must be an independent thing, just hangs out there. Okay, and it just pops in when we need to feel certain way, you know? So it goes through this logic, and you know the answer. We've gone through this, and what it is, it eventually tells you that you cannot find such an I. Now, I want to be a little mindful and tell you, we are looking for that exaggerated I, that one that makes us feel I am here. That big I is not negating who you are, your form or whatever you are. It doesn't say you are a blank and you're just like a wind somewhere, nothing like that. It is just looking for that exaggerated I, that inherent feeling we have. And we find out after looking for it, it does not exist. For that matter, you can look at anything else. I is just a person. It starts from I, so that's why we go to I first. But you look at anything else. When you look for something, you have a name associated with it, and you identify it solid. Table, there it is. Here's a glass, here's a cup, we identify it. But in our mind, we see that as existing the way it is. We don't go further than that. And why is it important to know that? What is the big deal? Okay, so what? I see a cup, maybe it doesn't exist the way I see it. So what? Here's that connection. Everything we see as if it exists inherently. However, when you break it apart, you find that everything is dependent arising. Here's the key word, dependent arising. If everything is dependent arising, then you cannot exist inherently. You gotta go through that in your mind. Those words are important. Think, if everything, the cup is made of particles and atoms and clay and everything, human beings are made up of blood cells and skin and muscles, and it can be broken down into the most nanoparticles. In the end, we do exist because that phenomena is there. However, when you look very deeply inside, it is not existing from its own self. It is dependent arising. Other things are always working. There's energies in this phenomena that makes us. This is a fundamental thing. Now, however you put it, we'll go through it again, and you can use the word dual, non-dual, ultimate, conventional, relative truth. These are words, but it is meaningful to know things do exist conventionally. However, they don't exist inherently. Things exist dependent arising. Everything. That doesn't mean you're not there. That doesn't mean the cup is not there. It is just knowing how it truly exists. That's all. And that brings us to back. Now turn this around and bring it to I. That's how we are. So now we make such a big fuss about everything. And in reality, you don't need to have this kind of attachment and aversion and anger. And you can put all your 51 mental factors in how we exaggerate things. It calms you down, sees things a little more perspective. That's the whole point of learning emptiness. And people who understand emptiness properly after really reaching a high level, they can look at the world they can look at emptiness non-conceptually. Bam. They just know that everything is a projection of mind. And that's how good they are. That doesn't mean they don't see the cups and the cars and the roads. They just know how to see things the way they are. It's a development of mind. And when you are in that state of mind and you develop then the bodhicitta and all those, the three major aspects of the path, including bodhicitta, now you are moving into Buddhahood, the path. Okay, so that is the whole point, guys. And so in class number 5, I at least want you to basically understand that. That's the point of emptiness. And now we'll go through the actual understanding of why we talk about these little things that we talk about. Okay, I'm not gonna go through every example here. You kind of know this. And I think I find these examples very nice because it kind of gives you some way of thinking of different consciousnesses. One is of a sound, one is of a thought, one is of a fiction. You know, we talk about Harry Potter. Okay, we already know Harry Potter does not exist because it's a story, fiction story. So the word fiction already tells you it is somebody made it up. However, if you did not know, you can still visualize Harry Potter in England somewhere. You can probably even visualize his face and his body. This is how our mind works because of concepts. And we talked about it last class, and I'll cover it again, that because of causes and conditions, and then we label things. We have thoughts and words. And because of that, we concretize things, right? You take the words and thoughts away and you don't know. All of a sudden, it's like a blank picture. right? So think about those things. And the candle flame example was nothing more than just showing how cause and effect work, that both things cannot happen at the same time. The flame that was a moment before is not the flame of this moment. That flame kind of died down. This is another flame in this moment. So that's how connectivity goes, how impermanent works. It just continues to happen till at some point the flame just out of its own karma dies down, right? But that's how things go. We talked about a cup, and we went into little detail about a cup. This is not a denial that this cup is not in front of me. Conventionally, you and I need to talk with each other. We know this cup exists. This is a cup and I'm drinking from it, right? We know that. However, when you talk about cup or cupness of the cup, there is no cup existence in that. It's just a word we gave to a structure that we agreed upon. But when we talk about universals and cups that are out in the world, they exist in the thought. And thought is not, it's just mere words and ideas. Therefore, it does not exist inherently. There is no cupness in this cup. You can break it down into particles and clay and atoms and go on. But we can call it a cup, and it needs to be there so we can communicate properly. So nothing wrong with having a cup. So don't feel that it does not exist. It is not there, nothing like that. It exists, it's a phenomena. It's however we recognize it through putting words and thoughts and causes and conditions. That's how phenomena works. And that's how we are, okay? Good example, my best example I like is the rainbow. You know, it's there. You see it with your eyes, you get excited when you see one, say, oh, look at that, how beautiful that rainbow is. Just know that that rainbow is there. However, there are causes and conditions. You need some light and you need some moisture. Take a look at fire. Fire is there. It burns when you put your finger in it, so it's real. However, it's the air, the fuel, the friction, many other causes and conditions for that fire to exist. However, you take one of those conditions away and the fire is not there. It does not exist. So it does not inherently exist. It depends on other things, correct? So just, you gotta keep this like in your mind again and again and again. And once you get that a little bit going in your mind, when you meditate, just generally, you will start to sense that. Okay, how everything is, this is the whole phenomena, how things are just impermanent, things are moving, I exist, I go to work, I wear clothes, I do like good things, you like good things. Keep all those in perspective. However, when you look at individual things, you don't find inherently its causes and conditions, interdependence. It just many phenomena working like that. That's how things are. Okay.
Hemant, we do have a question.
Sure.
From a student. It says, if we are able to convince ourselves through contemplation and the 4-point analysis that the personal I is not findable and it's just a concept, have we succeeded in realizing emptiness? Okay. And then the second part is, because it seems like I can do that, but there is still suffering. If I really had the experience of emptiness, shouldn't suffering dissipate? There must be more to it.
Yeah, I'll go backwards. Your karmic seeds exist from previous lives. Your karmic seeds are still there. So whenever they have a fruition, or your cause and effect is still taking place. So suffering is part of this cyclic existence. The Four Noble Truths starts with what? There is suffering. So suffering exists. However, you, in your precious human life, with knowledge, by learning, thinking, and meditating, you can learn emptiness. And what you're doing is you're creating causes and conditions for less suffering, or at some point eradicating that, because you can get liberated. That is the point of learning the emptiness. And that reminds me, there was a question last class, and I will get back to this also. There was a question about a child who has not been even given a name. Is this child recognizing emptiness? I spoke with Geshe-la, wanting to make sure that I was thinking correctly or incorrectly. He answered me very nicely. He says, unless the child was born through a force of prayer or had realized emptiness and chose to take this human life, he may have some emptiness realization. However, until the child grows up to learn Four Noble Truths and learn and have the knowledge, he or she cannot recognize emptiness. So you must learn, you must have the knowledge, only then you can really understand emptiness. Unless in previous life, the person was already familiar, highly familiar with emptiness and brings the seeds over. But otherwise, if you've taken the birth, you are still very innocent in many ways. However, you have begun the cycle of learning and knowing, and you are in that the 12-link origination cycle, basically. So you must learn to develop how to eradicate the ignorance that we are talking about and learn emptiness. So I wanted to let you know that I actually took those notes and I wanted to say it, and this was a perfect point for it. So there was another part of this question, maybe I don't remember it. So we understood that suffering is there because we are in this samsara. However, we can minimize a lot of the suffering because of the precious human rebirth and following the Dharma, practicing Lamrim and understanding the way things exist. That is a key to then bringing a lot of this, managing your pain better, but also putting seeds so you are going to be liberated soon in this life or in following lives. Did I miss something?
I don't think so.
Okay, and we'll cover some of these things. This is a very good question. So anyways, so no questions. The last example I want to just talk about is countries and boundaries. It's really funny for me because it's amazing how we create boundaries on the maps. Purely conceptual, right? You see the map, you see a border. This is Texas, this is Virginia, this is North Carolina, this is Mexico. Now, do the birds know that? Because they don't have that concept. We create these boundaries. It's okay. I mean, it's necessary for living and politics of things, but I'm just saying how things, because of concepts, we know, oh, I'm in another state now because you saw a board. Welcome to North Carolina. Oh, I'm home. We already have concepts, boom, 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 ideas coming up, and already you feel comfortable that you're home. Still on the same road, simply a sign can change that mood. So concepts, okay? So that's that. I want to keep an eye on my time today. Okay, 1 second. Okay, just in class number 4, last class, we talked about that knowledge is important. Knowledge of logic is important. Why is it important? And then we talked about how dependent arising comes up. And so let me get to my notes. And then I want to make sure that I follow a couple of things I want to mention today. Okay, yeah. And it's called King of Reasons because it's just a title given to the way you should think in this logical way. It's just a title given. You can take any formula and give it a name. In the old days, people listened to the king, and this is a teaching from Buddha, so they call this a reasoning of King of Reasons. Knowledge of logic is important because it's very important to see the structure, how things really, if you want to truly change your mind properly, then you need to have some sort of a structure to it. It demonstrates that. And that conceptual understanding that we have, does it have a logical way of going about saying it is true or not true? We also look at, it provides the keys to build the right views and demolish the wrong ones. This is why we go through this logical thinking. And then ultimately our goal is to demonstrate the emptiness of things. And that's why structure is important. Then let's see if I can go to the next slide. Okay, dependent arising. None of these things that we are talking about requires blind faith. Probably the most attractive part of emptiness, even personally for me and for many teachers that I read say the same things, that there are a lot of other things you have to kind of put faith in it, like because somebody said so. Here, they walk you through the logic. They walk you through step-by-step analyzing things, and you answer your own questions. You come to your own conclusion. You investigate it, and you then come to your conclusion that this is the result of that. So that's why I call it that learning about emptiness and dependent arising, simply not a blind faith because somebody said so. And like Buddha himself said, check it out and see if it's true. Okay? It's taught through reasoning. We have to reason because we have conceptual knowledge. Our mind already starts to fight. The minute we say these things, it's already trying to say, wait a minute, slow down. That's not how I'm thinking, right? So you need to work through that a little bit and allow this reasoning to go through, okay? And most important subject to learn, as you already know, and this is the way to take some of your biggest obstacles out, okay? We know that there are slight differences in philosophical schools, but they're pretty uniform in terms of how they see emptiness. And they're slightly how you view it is different. One will say, if in my mind I don't see it, then it doesn't exist. Nagarjuna was absolute champion of this. He took it even further, that even you can't go like that. Even mind does not exist on its own. It has thoughts and previous thoughts. So you cannot just say things don't exist. Things do exist. And they exist because things are empty of inherent existence. That's why they exist. Our mind is trained to say, when we say something is empty, we think there's nothing in there. That's what plays the word, the semantics play these games in your mind. But because remember in the first class we say, because things are dependent arising, they are empty. And because they're empty, it allows the flexibility to change and move and do things. If it was solid, it was inherent, then nothing changes. Then what develops bodhicitta, and how do you get enlightened? How do you do your normal duties, and how do you memorize? So you need this phenomena the way it exists. However, just need to know how it exists, that everything is dependent arising. There you are, and how you view yourself, and how to kind of look at things in a little more realistic way. And that's the whole idea behind this, okay? Two truths, definition, conventional truth. Look and listen, this is a very important two little truths. It doesn't say one is a lie and one is a truth. It says two truths. They both exist. What is true to the valid conventional consciousness? That's the conventional truth. It is also called a concealer truth or obscuring truth. It's still a truth, but it's obscured because we don't see things the way they exist. We kind of put ideas and concepts, and that's why it's like a veil. And the ultimate truth is a deeper way of looking at things, how ultimately things exist. Simply both truth exist. Okay? And then of course, method and wisdom, sometimes you hear these words, two wings of the Buddhism. You need method to do your daily activities, develop kindness, develop compassion. And then wisdom is that logical, cerebral side that looks at mind carefully to see how things are and realize the nature of reality. And we work those two together. Okay. The word ignorance, again, very important. This is what we're trying to get rid of. Literally not seeing that which exists and the way in which it exists. You can read that yourself. Introducing two more words. And the reason I am introducing this is because it is in the Heart Sutra. It says Bhagwan was seated. So for some of us, we may know this. Others may not know what Bhagwan meant. So I thought it's good to put it down so you can see it. Okay. Sometimes translated as the Blessed One, so forth, Venerable One. Okay. It kind of relates to Buddha. Okay, and the sutra, the Heart Sutra in Sanskrit originally was known as Prajnaparamita, the wisdom of perfection. Okay, so we have to use those words because then when you see it, you don't get lost. And then you will see some explanation about dualistic view. We seem to have this inherent feeling of I, so it's me, you, this, that. It's all relative. If you light versus dark, smooth versus coarse, everything is in dualistic nature. If you only had light, how would you know there's dark? You would not know the difference. These are words we give to concepts and stuff like that. So it's good to kind of see that in this phenomena, a lot of dualistic things we talk about, but it has one taste. Okay, and we will talk about that. And so it says, It's an ignorant view, characteristics of unenlightened mind in which all things are, and I can't read it properly there, are falsely conceived to have concrete self-existence. Okay? So, take a look at that, and I'm going to read from my notes. Okay. To such a view, the appearance of an object is mixed with false image of being independent or self-existent, leading to further dualistic views concerning subject and object. Me and you, she and her, I and you, this and that. We do this dualistic thing all the time. Okay. Okay. So this is the next piece that I'm going to cover for today's class. So in emptiness, there are 5 Mahayana paths. Okay, these are called the 5 Mahayana paths. So when you go through this Heart Sutra, you will see that each of the main sections relate to this path. So in the beginning, we go through path of accumulation and preparation. Sometimes they are together, but path of accumulation and preparation. Realization arising from hearing and contemplating and teaching of the Heart Sutra or emptiness. The next is path of preparation. You start to meditate. The teacher says, go home, contemplate, think, and meditate. So you go and start to meditate. So you start to get little glimpses of it. Okay? So you start to see a little bit of it. Then you get a little advance. Now you're moving really into the path of seeing. This is direct, non-conceptual realization of emptiness. All the ideas and thoughts and words go by wayside, and you can directly see the nature of things. And then the path of meditation, much, much higher level, Vajra-like, solid, one-pointed meditation, final moment of a sentient being, a customization with direct realization of emptiness in a one-pointed meditation stabilization. Nothing but that. That's it. That's a stable one-pointed meditation. And then ultimately, you have reached Buddhahood and free of all afflictive and cognitive obscurations or obstructions. That's called path of no more learning. Once you're Buddha, you are pure, absolute knowledge, you know it all, omniscient, omnipresent. So this is how your mind evolves. That's why this is a very powerful topic. Now, I will relate to these as we go through Heart Sutra. Okay, the Heart Sutra, the pieces are written on the top, and then some explanation is in the bottom. Okay, the Heart Sutra starts with what they call common prologue. And remember, this is a very profound teaching on emptiness. So if you want to learn, if you want to invest some money in future or have books in the house, I will learn about Heart Sutra. And when Venerable Chernoff is going to be teaching Heart Sutra, try to pay attention, because it's an amazing subject to learn, and you will get some viewpoints. Maybe I'm not able to express here, but maybe you learn it from a different angle. But again, the point here is it starts with a common prologue. And it says, thus did I hear at one time the Bhagavan, Buddha, was dwelling on the mass vulture mountain of Rajagira with Bodhisattva and the great community. What that is just telling you is, this is a common prologue with 4 parts. It shows the excellence of time. It says, thus did I hear at one time. So somebody is writing this down. The excellence of the teacher, it tells you the quality of the teacher. It tells you the excellence of the place, Rajagira, where he was seated, and the excellence of the audience. There were common, ordinary people, but also bodhisattvas and highly realized monks, right? So the excellence of the audience. Okay. The excellence of the teacher also means, and I have this in my notes, so I want to mention this, that the excellence of the teacher is a teacher who has actually overpowered or controlled the 4 maras, or the poisonous obstructive forces. They call them mara. If you look at Buddha movies, you will see that when he was he was about to be awakened, the the bad demonic forces came to lure him, right? That's what they're talking about. These are obstructive forces which create obstacles to practitioners, created by mind, right? And they are like clinging going on, habitual tendencies of negativity still in your mind, maybe thinking of death, craving for pleasure. These things come to you. And if you have a habit of knowing, liking those things, you will latch onto it. Buddha said no. And that's how he got away from that Maras. So the word Mara is important to know in that way. Okay. Then there's a second paragraph. This is called the uncommon prologue. Okay. Here is very important to know that the uncommon prologue, here the word profound refers to emptiness. So look at this. It says, Bhagavan, so Buddha was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. So the profound perception, he is talking about emptiness. So profound perception indicates the wisdom that realizes emptiness. And so he was in this contemplative moment. He was sitting there in this contemplation. This inspired this entire dialogue between Avalokiteshvara and Sariputra, his disciples. And this is how it starts. So this is the actual sutra. So this shows that the power of Buddha that inspires this question, and the question is just the dialogue between Avalokiteshvara and Sariputra, and the question is asked, how should any son of lineage train who wishes to practice this activity of profound perfection of wisdom? How does one realize emptiness? Okay. So,
hey, Mick, can I interrupt you? We do have a question.
Sure.
Would now be a good time?
Sure.
Okay, so someone wants to know, can you, she's requesting, can you talk more about the obstructive forces? Specifically, can they play out as the circumstances of our lives or only as thoughts?
Yeah, it is again your concept. Most of these forces, mostly generated in the mind, right? It says even here, these are the maras, are the mental obstructions, developing clinginess, grasping at things, fear of death, wanting pleasure, conveniences. These are all mental projections. And so when you are practicing emptiness, what you're trying to do is realizing that how things are dependent arising and how you want to visualize emptiness of things, how things exist. Even if these thoughts come to your mind because of your habitual tendencies, you work with them and say, this is no longer going to come in my way. You got to work at it. You got to work at it. They will happen. You just think about our normal life. How many times you could be sitting in the most beautiful place and a negative thought will come through. It's just there. Why? Because it's happened before many times and we've kind of said, hey, you're my buddy, just hang in there for a while. Right? We do that to ourselves. So that's what they're talking about. So it's mostly with the mind. This obstructive force is not in the terms of the wind and the little energies out there, but a lot of its habitual tendencies that we already have as a person that sees things non-realistically. We see things, don't see the ultimate truth. All right, so let's take a look at it. So this is then the power of Buddha. This is how the question was answered. I'm going to move forward. This is how it was answered. And you don't have to go through the entire piece. Just look at the main point. That Sariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice this activity of profound perfection of the wisdom should look upon it correctly, repeatedly, beholding those 5 aggregates. And what are those 5 aggregates? Not Karen, anybody else? What are the 5 aggregates? So I'll start slowly. form.
Wait, we have, it looks like
Senses.
John Kelly. Go for it.
Yep. Senses, perceptions, attitudes, and consciousness.
Okay, good. So it goes like this: forms, the forms, feelings, so you're right. Perception, you're right. Then this mental chatter that we create, I'm going to do this, if I do this, that will happen, and if I do this, and if I don't do that, that goes with it. Anything that doesn't fit in those, it kind of fits into this mental compositional factors, they call it. And the last is consciousness. They're all empty of inherent existence. Okay, so what he's saying here is that should look upon this correctly and repeatedly, beholding those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent existence. It's not saying they don't exist, it's saying does not exist inherently. Dependent arising. Okay, so that's our first point. So you think about now, when I'm going through this, everything that we've been learning so far, relative truth, ultimate truth, ignorance, the dependent arising, we've been talking about these things. Now you're going to see how it comes from, where it comes from, and how Buddha taught this so nicely. Okay, so okay, so we got through that. So the second one, so I will tell you that now we're going to go into the actual emptiness pieces. So remember the 5 aggregates, the 5 paths I talked about? The first was path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, and path of no more learning. So you will see that the first piece of the actual sutra or discourse has to do with path of accumulation and preparation. And then you will see the second one goes into the path of seeing. The third one goes into path of meditation. And ultimately, you reach a point where you will see path of no more learning. And this is the progression of the Heart Sutra itself in this manner. And I have slides to give you both pieces so you can see it and read it. So here's the starting of the Heart Sutra. It says, form is empty. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, and form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Now, this requires a little explanation. And the first aggregate is the form, which is empty of inherent existence. Look at us. It does not exist from its own side. But then to say that we don't get into nihilism like nothing exists, it says to negate that feeling of nihilism, the second statement says emptiness is form. And think about that for a second. Because things are empty and dependent arising, forms exist. If your blood cells and bones and things come together through dependent arising, and that's how they come. It's just that it's not by itself, out of nothing, it just comes up like this. Linda does not come out of nothing. It is dependent arising. I am dependent arising. You are dependent arising. Causes and conditions bring that about. So gotta think about that a little bit deeper. Okay? So it just shows how the way the things exist. It's simply not there the way we think. Okay? So then we are asking, what is it empty of? Inherent existence, that's all. You gotta get that in your mind. Inherent meaning out of nowhere, you just happen. You don't realize that so many causes and conditions and dependent arising is the result. You are the result. We are all the result of that. Everything, all phenomena is that way. Somehow we think that, no, I am special. That's what it's trying to say. It's nothing like that. And this is, they emphasize this because living beings do not realize it. And they believe that form inherently exists. So they then develop attachment. And then we like the pleasing forms. We don't like, we have an aversion towards an ugly form. And then that starts the whole cycle. This is where the problems begin. So it's talking about that. At this point, if there is a video, we want to see if you can play this video, Linda.
Yeah, first, Oh, this one. Do you have it embedded or no?
No, it's not working, so you'll have to,
Yeah, so you'll have to stop sharing your screens so that I can share mine.
and then I'll stop, and then we'll go through and share it again. It's just a 3 or 4 minute video. Yeah, I will. Okay. I did mention earlier that this is the translator of His Holiness, right? Thupten, I gave the name, I think, but let me just make sure. Thupten Jinpa. He's a Buddhist scholar. There it is. Okay, he serves as a translator for His Holiness.
Heart of the Heart Sutra, that line, form is emptiness and emptiness is form. You can send us to read.
Yes, yes.
But I want you to teach us that part.
Well, I think, I mean, this is a very, very enigmatic kind of statement in the Heart Sutra, which also you find in other Perfection of Wisdom Sutras as well. And the way in which, it is helpful for, ordinary Buddhist practitioners to engage with that kind of statement is to really understand, why is the Buddha in the Heart Sutra drawing such an equivalence between, almost like an identity relation between form and emptiness. So form is here only an example because you have form aggregates and feelings and so on. And the reason that is because it is not so much emptiness that we grasp at, but rather it's the reality of everyday things that we encounter in our life, whether it is the objects around us or whether it is our own experience of pain and pleasure or thoughts and feelings that we constantly live in our day-to-day life. These are the things that we engage with in our everyday life, and these are the things that either chain us to a particular strict kind of constrained way of looking at things, and then give rise to more negative emotions and so on, and perpetuate the cycle of habits and patterns and so on. So by pointing out that form is emptiness, the Heart Sutra is radically reminding us that the objects that of everyday life that we relate to, which seem so real, so tangible and so solid and concrete, but in fact, if you reflect deeply, the kind of concreteness and solidity that we have imposed on them is more of a construct. The reality of these phenomena is that they are thoroughly dependent, they are thoroughly contingent, and even our concepts of, say, a flower already presupposes many other concepts, that are, part of it. So, but in our naive kind of, way of relating to the world, we tend to look at it as if these are independent silos or discrete things that somehow, like billiard balls hitting each other, we grasp onto them, we impose upon them a reality that is way beyond what they possess. And pointing out this through the teaching on emptiness, the idea is to, teach us how to have a less grasping. But then the danger is that with human mind, anything that we find beneficial, we find useful and helpful and true, then our tendency is to immediately grasp onto that one.
Yes.
So now if form is emptiness, then emptiness must be true and real and absolute.
Yeah.
Then we have a tendency to grasp onto that.
Yeah.
And then there, basically saying emptiness is form, the Buddha is pointing out, although that is the ultimate truth of things, but that ultimate truth is only true in relation to everyday object.
Yes.
So it's not something that is like standing outside, independent, transcendent. So then again, the relationship is drawn back so that, and then he would, in the Heart Sutra, the text goes on to say, there is no, form other than emptiness, and there is no emptiness other than form. So it's really, then that identity relation is even being drawn stronger so that no room is left where there is even a tiniest possibility of grasping either onto the everyday world of objects or to the emptiness of their things. And that's a way of, in some sense, it's like, using emptiness as a medicine to cure our grasping at form, but then using another medicine to cure the potential of grasping at emptiness itself, so that the medicine does not turn into poison. And so that's why there's this constant, kind of play between form and emptiness and form.
Okay. Can you hear me, Linda?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay,
And
good.
see you and see your PowerPoint.
Okay, good. Thank you. So at least I hope that gave you some understanding that when you read these things, I'm going to go back one slide. Oops. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, form is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feelings, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. And the point he was making was that Buddha is very, very nicely put together how he placed this both so we don't latch onto. We have a tendency, if we like something, we understand something, that's what we latch onto. So he wants to keep in the middle. He wants to make sure that you normally go about your normal work and whatever you do, and that this, but don't make everything so concrete. On the other way, as soon as you start to see emptiness of things, you don't think nothing else exists. And you get so much into that and you don't think about anything else. He's trying to see this nice relationship, things do exist. However, when you just truly understand it, you find out that inherently they don't, everything is dependent arising. So again, everything that we have learned in this class, you can see very nicely put together in this one paragraph. And that's why I suggest I have some wonderful books on this. And more I read, there's always something else that like, wow, aha, look at this, look at that. It happens to us all. So I would suggest that if you truly want to understand emptiness, that you would take some time to read this into a little more. But again, this particular paragraph is related to path of preparation and path of accumulation. Okay, so now what you're doing is, like you're in the class, you're hearing, you're going to contemplate, and hopefully you're meditating on it. And when we do this meditation at the end of the class, that's what in essence we are doing. Meditation on I, 4-point analysis, right? We do these things. That's how you start to think about this, the nature of reality, okay? We'll keep it on the target here. The next piece it says, so Sariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristics, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Without going into a lot of detail, what he's talking about here is all the causes, all the results, and the present things. Everything inherently does not exist. All the causes or the results are also empty inherently. They're empty from inherent existence, I should say. That's what they're trying to say. And the 8 qualities that he's talking about here, you see this characters, unproduced, unceased, not without stain. There are 8 qualities he's talking about. All the phenomena are emptiness. They have no defining characters. They are not produced. They do not cease. They are not defiled. They are not free from defilements. They do not decrease. They do not increase. We perceive things like that, but its true nature doesn't do that. In its own effect, it doesn't do that. All it's saying is that in nature, in phenomena, there is no titles and language and concepts and things like that. That's all he's trying to say. So people who are meditating now see this, that there is nothing like that. Causes and effects, and this because this happened, that happened. They don't see this, just there. That's the part of seeing. Path of meditation. Now you're really, this is the one, I should say, when I first learned this, very first time, several years ago, when I read this, I got scared. I said, I don't want to know emptiness, because it says words like, there is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual, no sound. I'm thinking, my goodness, I don't want to be there, right? It's not talking about that this is what is talking totally different. So let me just tell you what it is. You are on the path of meditation. Why? Because what are you meditating on? On emptiness, correct? So when you're meditating on emptiness, one engages in one-pointed meditation, stabilization. And when the mind is set in one-pointed meditative stabilization on emptiness, no forms appear. No feelings appear. The five aggregates, you don't think about them. They don't appear in your mind. And that's why this nose does not appear and the eyes does not appear. You are in a beautiful place of pure, directly perceiving emptiness. That's why it says that. It doesn't say your nose is not there or your eyes are not there. They're in the meditative equipoise, in a single pointed, in meditation, these things don't appear. Okay, there's not saying they don't exist. The way we think. Because of non-duality, they are in non-dual mindset. Everything in that phenomenon is one-pointed. So these forms and things don't appear. Those concepts are gone, and they directly start to perceive emptiness at this point in time. So if you look at the path of meditation, it's samadhi, final moment of sentient being accustomed with direct realization of emptiness in one-pointed stabilization. Finally, the mind without obscuration, without fear, having completely gone beyond, passed beyond the error, they reach the end of nirvana. You are liberated. Okay? And when you're liberated, you don't have obscurations. Therefore, you're becoming now going towards omniscient Buddhahood, free from all afflictive and cognitive obscurations. So that's how it goes. And then it further says, this is for the short faculty practitioners, according to my notes here. It's, of course, we went through this mantra, but you can see that in the end, therefore the mantra of perfection. So once you understand all of those five paths properly, as I went through, path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, and path of no more learning. When you understand and how emptiness works through those things in the question and answer between Sariputra and Avalokiteshvara, once you understand that properly, it says all you have to do is use this mantra, Tayatha gate gate, paragate, parasamagate, bodhi soha. Encompasses all of that discourse into this mantra. Your mind immediately goes, Tayatha, the way things are, the way it is, the mantra of perfection, gate gate, gone, gone. One goes, one is gone, gone away. Okay, so you can see that. Paragate, gone beyond. Parasamagate, gone completely beyond. Bodhi, full enlightenment, you have gained. So it goes through these really beautiful stages. Sometimes people say even like the Lamrim stages, the small scope is gate gate, then you go to the paragate, parasamagate. So these are like three scopes and ultimately you're enlightened. There are a lot of this kind of discourses I have heard and teachings I've gone to, but generally speaking, when you're looking at this very carefully, you can see very nicely that in the one mantra, the entire Heart Sutra is put together. Okay. So good. I have few minutes, so before we go to meditation, I might even we may actually even finish a little early. I do have something that I wanted to see if I can cover with you. And I got these notes just for people to understand a little better what the conventional truth and the ultimate truth really means, so you can put it to the lay language a little bit, not so, logically and all that. So I'm going to use those words. So I'm going to read a few things. Try to just listen to me carefully. Okay. There are two truths, right? We talk about conventional and ultimate truth, and the teaching goes all the way back to Buddha. So the understanding of these two truths and the relationship between them is vital. Okay, in seeing how things exist in the way we have this exaggerated view of inherent existence. So what is the conventional truth again? It involves our everyday experience, right? Understanding of the way phenomena in the world appears and functions, okay? The rainbows appear, the fire burns, the car drives, the birds fly, the dogs bark, conventional. We see it every day. It is agreed upon identification of things and how they work and understanding with worldly activities. But it requires valid cognition. You still have a mind that is validly cognizing. If you don't have a valid cognition, then you may have a problem. You may have a problem, you may see a leaf and see it as a bird, or you may see a rope and call it a snake. So it's important to have a valid cognition to actually realize that that's a snake and that's a rope. That's a bird and that's a leaf. That's a butterfly. So we need that cognition. It exists that way, okay? But we also know that conventional reality is also a little deceptive, right? You know that because when we go through this other life, we objectify things, we make it too real. You heard also in the video today that we have a tendency to concretize things, make it solid. You look at a car and that's all you think about. That's a car, that's a TV. We don't see the emptiness of TV, we don't see the emptiness of car. It's just how we conventionally speak. This is how we see things. And it's just trying to give you a really nice way of expressing and explaining to you that this is what happens to us all the time. And that's why we don't see the reality of things, because we put this solid things onto everything, is what they're trying to say. But when you thoroughly examine anything, you will find out that ultimately it does not exist on its own. It does not have an inherent existence, right? And that's very important to understand. And this is how you look at things. And then you start to see how things are related, how we are all related, how things, the phenomena exist, and how this multitude of causes and conditions and factors work into this movement of these energies that go on up and down, and we label everything. And I was talking to somebody and I said, even in the ocean, when you see a wave, it's no different than the ocean, even in conceptually speaking. Ocean is a conceptual word, but in an ocean body of water, you see a wave, and then we also have words for the peak, the wave, the wake, all these words just to identify the part of the wave. Ultimately, it's ocean still. It's the same thing. We do a lot of these words and thoughts and ideas and create these things. So the whole point again is that you must thoroughly examine yourself, go through this meditation, see how things exist, and then see how our ego is so tight, so big, and we think how solid we are, and nothing can come and cut that through, right? So that's the feeling you wanna start to work on. Now, the meditation that I will do will put some things to ease in a certain way. I think it was a wonderful meditation. So what I'm gonna do is that when I go through, it's from Rene Fusé, and I'm gonna introduce him first, okay? He was ordained by Dalai Lama more than 30 years ago. He's a Swiss monk. Venerable Rene Fusé has studied with some of the greatest scholars and inspiring lamas in Tibetan diaspora. He has also performed numerous extensive retreats, including 2.5-year seclusion-focused retreat on the graduated path of enlightenment and developing mental stability. He goes on and on and on. He's come to Kadampa Center also and taught. That's how I connected with him. And then when I saw he was teaching somewhere, I joined the group, and then I wrote him an email saying, I find this PDF very helpful in this module that I am teaching at this point in time. Is it okay if I use? And he said, Hemant, anything that can be helpful, please go ahead and use it. So I decided that rather than creating a meditation and going through a meditation, this will be a great contemplation. And one of the quiz questions you should know is, if somebody were to ask you, how do you learn emptiness? 3 things. You learn or hear, you contemplate, and you meditate. These 3 things, just remember that. Okay, so I would take at this point, I'm going to move forward here and we're going to go through this meditation. So just listen, I'm going to read what he has written. But I'm going to slow down at points and try to think through this. Everything that we've talked through, okay? Think about dependent origination. Think about how we exist, what does not exist. What are we talking about inherent existence? All these things, the sunyata, the heart sutta, what is it trying to tell you? And what is it that we want to experience ourselves? So now just kind of listen and relax and just get your mind open and just hear it out. So it starts by saying, when you meditate on emptiness of inherent existent I, and once this inherent existent I crumbles, and you've experienced the emptiness of inherent I, you discover a new sense of I. I'm going to repeat that again. When you meditate on the emptiness of inherent existent I, and once this inherent existent I crumbles, we do 4-point analysis, for example, and we don't find it, so it crumbles, and you experience the emptiness of this inherent I, you discover a new sense of I that is mere I, clear of all these concepts, just a mere I that is merely imputed on body and mind. That I exists. That I can generate love, compassion, so forth. That I can reach enlightenment, and that I exists forever. Very important to know this. Okay? So the mere I that is merely imputed by body and mind, that I exists. That is the I that can generate love, compassion, and so forth. And that I can reach enlightenment. But the mere I, while existing, cannot be found anywhere as existing from its own side. It is there, it exists relatively. But if one is not satisfied by that and wants to look for something more, to look for it as existing from its own side, one doesn't find it. And emptiness does not mean that I does not exist at all. Because if that would be the case, there would be no one to be able to generate love. We could not develop love and compassion and so forth. There would be no one to reach enlightenment. At the beginning, when you meditate on emptiness, it seems to kind of undermine the functionality of things. If it is empty, how can it actually work? How can it function? That means one hasn't yet completely grasped what emptiness and dependent arising means. One must continue to investigate. We might have that experience sometimes in our investigation, but actually, if one does it correctly, as one's mind develops, when you focus on the emptiness of inherent existence, it does not remove the existence of the phenomena. It removes the inherent existence, and you are left with something, and that something can function. Even though it exists as a mere name, mere imputation, it can function. When you realize that I does not exist from its own side, there is another sense of I that you experience after that. And that other I, although not existing from its own side, can generate and cultivate this compassion, become bodhisattva, and reach enlightenment. And that is what you have to intuit. Think or contemplate about it, deep way. You have to be able to experience that gradually. This mere I that is left And by cultivating thoughts of love, remembering the kindness of others, wishing them well, wishing them all the goodness in life, wishing them to be free of suffering, wishing them all spiritual qualities, wishing them enlightenment, and by cultivating those thoughts, love grows in your heart. Love is dependent arising. It depends on you cultivating the concordant thoughts. And those thoughts induce certain emotion in your heart. And that emotion induces more thoughts, and those thoughts increase the emotions. While being empty from its own side, by cultivating those thoughts and those emotions, then love, compassion, and bodhicitta is born. So even though there is no I existing from its own side, if you cultivate the thoughts, it will produce the emotion, and that emotion includes more thoughts, which includes even more emotion. Then that is how you become love, you become compassion, and you become bodhicitta. Again, not something else. You become love, you become compassion, you become bodhicitta. All the while, if you look, who is the one who develops bodhicitta? Who is the one who meditates on love and compassion? You don't find anyone. That is how you gradually merge your understanding of emptiness with the development of love, compassion, and bodhicitta. So take this meditation that we did, and let's dedicate your efforts to understand this subject and meditate on its meaning to your attainment of Buddhahood, so that you will be able to lead each and every living being to that same enlightenment state. Thank you.
Thank you, Heyman.
Yeah. What did you think of that meditation?
It was nice. Yes. Yeah, I liked it a lot, and it definitely made me think about things, I guess, in a more defined or clear way.
Yeah. I will say by ending this by saying I even asked, I talk with Geshe-la a lot about when I teach classes. Sometimes, questions come up sometimes. When I was learning this in the beginning, I got the idea that things don't exist. And that question automatically went to then what exists? That's where the mind goes. Where does the seed go? How does that karma work if nothing exists? But I had a misunderstanding of emptiness as nothing. Mm-hmm. When you really understand that emptiness does not mean nothingness, right? Emptiness is just dependent arising. It's just when you look individual entity, it doesn't exist from its own, but the phenomena still exist. It's dependent arising. So there is a mere I left. And Geshe-la said, that I, that self, is the one that goes on and on and on. That's what becomes Buddha. If there was that self was not there, that mere self was not there, Now, of course, we put a lot of the concepts and idea and all of those things in it, and we have this nice veil on it. That's why our ego is so high. But when you remove that fundamental basal mere I that exists, that carries the tendencies with us. And that's what allows you to then practice, learn virtuous things, do the good things. And that's what you want to do to develop bodhicitta and ultimately realize emptiness. And that what goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah, and it helped to think about it in terms of this I can love and be compassionate.
Correct.
Yeah, and then we have a couple other comments. Let's see. John would like he'd like to get a few recommendations for guided meditations on emptiness.
Okay. So how about this? I will take that as a note. I will find a few articles or few some books that I have or things where we can find these things. Even in these teachings there are several meditations, and maybe we can pull those meditations to start with And
Right.
at least that is a good one. Also in that book, the how to meditate, the one we typically carry in the bookstore, there's a meditation on emptiness. If you go through Lamrim meditations, there will be meditation on emptiness. There are quite a few ways, but then you don't want to be just focused on the 4 eyes. There are other meditations about emptiness that allows you to do placement meditation. Once you go through this analysis, you reach a point of this calm understanding, and you want to stay there and create a placement type meditation. So there are different ways to advance. So I will find some resources and see if we can post it, find it, or at least I can find out and get those answers. And this is for John, right?
Yes, John Kelly. And I would also add that if you go to online learning, FPMT, you can register for the Discovering Buddhism class online. If you go to the Kadampa Center website and then go to Discovering Buddhism Materials, and then scroll down to where it says DB 12, Wisdom of Emptiness, there's like a handout that says about this module. And about 2/3 of the way down that first page, there's a box that says resources. And on the right-hand side, it will explain how to access the FPMT's online learning Discovering Buddhism module. There's a key code that you have to use to get it for free. And they do have some guided meditations on that website as well.
Okay. So if somebody were to ask a question right now to you, simple things, and think about it, I'm going to ask this next class. So the last class, I'm going to summarize. We're going to go through this top line like a flow chart of how things are. It's not going to be a long class, do a meditation. But and these questions, if you can prepare 1 or 2 words or sentences, and this is not to check, it is just a good, as a person teaching a module, to see if people are understanding, grasping a few things. And that would be, what is emptiness in your own word? Just maybe 2 sentences or 3 sentences max. Okay. And you may want to email this to people, I don't know. What is ignorance? Third question, what does emptiness have to do with liberation and enlightenment? We just went through one today, but I'm going to ask anyways. Name one of the most famous teachings that Lord Buddha gave on emptiness. Okay. Right? If you don't know that one, something is not right with us. What is dependent arising? And how do emptiness and dependent arising relate to one another? These are the questions I want to ask.
And the last part was, how do emptiness and dependent arising
Relate to one another.
relate to one another? Thank you.
Nothing major, and if you don't know, fine, but please make an attempt. It is there. We've gone through it many, many ways. What is dependent arising? What is emptiness? What is ignorance? We even have definitions of ignorance we went through. Okay.
And we do have a couple of other comments, maybe questions. Helen shares that the meditation was really profound, reasoning from a different perspective, she says.
Wonderful, thank you. I thought so. It really impressed me because it answers the question in a very beautiful way and still takes it further even to develop the love and compassion to bodhicitta. Because if the 3 aspects of the path, if you need to have emptiness, you need to also have bodhicitta. This tells you how emptiness can work, and then you can develop bodhicitta. I loved it. It was very nicely done. And that's why I thought, rather than reading how to recognize I and all that, this is what we want to know. So I asked his permission and he said, go ahead, do it. It's great.
And then we also have that that meditation was helpful because I thought the mere I was a bad thing to be transcended. Like the mere I is a subtle problem to be eradicated. No wonder I've been struggling so hard to find the ultimate I with this attitude.
Right. You remember the concrete I. the big I, the big ego is what we are trying to not, we don't find, but you are still there. There is something there, right? If you just take that I out, does not negate the phenomena that you are there. And what is that? And what is that wants to learn? What is that wants to move forward? You can, that's why they say middle way, because the tendency through teaching is to go towards nihilism. Like we think empty as not having water in the cup is empty. Emptiness here means things exist because they are empty. Look at the other way around, because they're dependent arising. Things, they just don't exist by themselves. They come into being because of dependent arising, and they are impermanent and keep going on. So that's how dependent arising and emptiness, one of the questions. They exist simultaneously that way. That's the same thing basically, right? And so and this is very hard subject. It does not penetrate immediately to people's mind. There is no switch I can present except if you were even to walk away with realizing why to learn emptiness, why we concretize things, and only to know that that is not how things exist. If we can even understand that, you've taken a big step, and then you must contemplate, read, understand, look at it from different angles. You'll even have arguments, and how about this, and what about that? All those things have to come to right in front of you. And as you work through them, you'll start to see that it's the real nature starts to appear in front of you, saying, I get it now, I get it. I didn't think that way before. Because we have these ideas and concepts in our head, and it's going to argue with some of these words. And even this teaching is conceptual because it's language. So you got to really kind of work through it, because not everybody understands the same. It is not your mother tongue. It is not your first language in some cases. So people have a hard time with some of these things. But at least, go ahead.
I was just going to say, sorry, there's a follow-up question to that says, so the mere I develops into the ultimate I?
No, it's not, there's no ultimate I, if you want to call it absolute I or something like that. It's a mere word. It is simply relative I. Because if you take away the ego, you take away all this nominal self, we call it, name, thoughts, something remains in the phenomena. And that's all you call it. Is the English word has to be there, so they call it mere self, mere I. It does not develop, it will go into, depending on your karma, it develops into whatever the stage it needs to be in that form and place, it does what it does because of the seeds that you carry with you. Hopefully you've realized emptiness, hopefully you've done some positive seeds in it, and that you take a higher rebirth or a human rebirth and continue at a higher level to recognize emptiness. That's all we can do right now. And that's the whole idea. Ultimate goal is to liberate this mind that is so confused with so much chatter because of concreteness, because of the inherent I, which we cannot find. So once you remove that, what remains is conceptual, conventional, mere self that is there, but you cannot draw it out right now. And that's what carries that seeds of karma. That's all I can tell you. That's what Keshala says, that exists. That's why you want to learn bodhicitta. That's why you want to meditate. What's meditating? You know? So, but you gotta go through this process. All it's taking away is right now, when I see somebody, I don't see the selflessness in you. I just see a very concrete person. And if I argue with you, you may punch me back. You know, we see things that way, concretely. That's all. It's just trying to say that be mindful of that. It's not negating anything in that way. Okay, it's just taking away that there is no self-independent existence from itself. Everything is connected, everything is dependent arising. And the way we see and communicate is through words, causes. We remember the parts, causes and conditions, and labels. And I gave an example to somebody when we were talking. If I were to bring somebody from New Guinea right now and show him a laptop, and I ask 5 people, including you, can you bring the laptop, please? You will go to the laptop, but that kid who has never seen a laptop has no idea what I'm talking about. He may not even know that I asked him to get it because of language. He does not have a concept of laptop. So we kind of concretize things by name, but when you take the name away, you see how things are. But we need this naming convention, and you just want to recognize it. They want you to know that that's how we learn things. And we limit ourselves by only those concepts. That's way more learning you can do if you just loosen up a little bit. And that's all they're saying. It's not saying it's bad. It's not saying you cannot talk, you can't have concept. We want you to recognize how we see things. And by doing that, we sometimes don't see the way they really are. And so what happens, that creates a lot of this mundane problems that we have. And that's all it's trying to really bring together, okay? So it's not to say that things don't, everything is like a when nothing exists and all that. It's just take the concreteness out of it. That's all.
And then John Kelly also shared that he liked that meditation, and he says, I think it helped or helps me understand and relate to the Heart Sutra. Yes, that. Thank you.
And this is exactly why I was searching. I'm going to find something that I can relate to people that can settle some of these questions in the mind. And even then it may raise some more questions. Now, so you're asking, mere I, mere self, oh, what does this exist? This is exactly what this is meant to do. It walks you through where we got it from, who taught it, what is it supposed to do, why is it profound, how it takes away ignorance, why it does, it goes through this entire process, goes through logic of how you find things and you know that it does not exist and things are independent arising. It walks you through this very nice step-by-step way, but then the real work comes when you start to really incorporate and question it. It will start to, bulbs will go on. And then you will, when you start to see it, first you see it intellectually. And then you may reach a point of path of seeing, full one's concentration, and things, you go in this wonderful blue sky type feeling. And you see how things are. You still know things. You still are aware of things, but you're not putting big labels on anything. That's how it works.
We have another question from Charles. He's asking, when meditating, it seems like there is the merely imputed I. Then there is the I that is doing the imputing. The merely imputed I is like an object of the imputing I. When I turn my mind to the one doing the imputing, things feel confusing and hazy. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, the whole purpose is to first recognize that the concrete I that thinks that it's imputing, it needs to be recognized. Where is it? Is it there? You have to work with that a little bit. You need to see that it's not there. It's the veil it's created. Maybe I'm not answering this properly, and I may need to maybe rephrase the question. Maybe you want to ask again, so I may write it down. Can you ask that question one more time?
Sure. He's saying, when meditating, it seems like there is the merely imputed I. Then there is the I that is doing the imputing.
Yeah, that is because we see things dualistically, subject and object. This is exactly when they talk about dualism and non-dualism, this is what they're talking about. We see things in I and you, this and that. But the truth in real emptiness is there is no I and you, this and that. These are imputed words. So in the beginning, it is perfectly fine to see it that way. But that confusion must be eradicated through learning. Where is that I? What is imputing that I? And where is that I? And what is it imputing? Okay, if you let that I even go away, what remains? What is it then? That's where our mind is fighting, because it's recognizing I still. You need to work through it very carefully and slowly till you realize that there is this just mere there's no real words for it. This subject-object relationship has to be purely. So I would suggest to read that in the readings, the non-dualism. Lama Yeshe is a required reading that we have, non-dualism. It goes through this subject-object, how we think of this and that. And our mind is really powerful. It cognizes itself too. It's an observer of that. Okay, so we need to kind of work through that. And when you do that, what will happen is you will come to this near self that is just simply there. That imputation will kind of subside. Only for language purposes, you know that there is still something that is there. That's all. But this conversation of I am thinking I should do this. This is a wonderful thought. Oh, my meditation was wonderful. Oh, that was a purple color. Oh, that purple color went away. Now there's a blue one. How can I get rid of it? This chatter is still going on. That is subject-object relationship. But when you just let it be, then that relationship starts to fade, and then you're just there. That's where you want to be. Okay? Maybe we should have that separate conversation. I would love to speak about that. And what I will do is I'll also pick up some right vocabulary that I can express this in a proper fashion.
And then lastly, oh, Naga, you had asked, can I please share that with us? Did you want me to share the questions that Hemant wants us to contemplate, or the information about finding the FPMT online, Discovering Buddhism?
I can find that one. Just the questions for homework.
Yep, so I will post the questions on the homework page that's posted in that same area on the Kadampa Center website. So again, go to the kadampa-center.org, Discovering Buddhism, and then Discovering Buddhism materials. Scroll down to DB12, Wisdom of Emptiness, and you'll see about this program as well as the homework posted there. So I'll add those questions to the homework that's already there.
Yeah. And I think these questions will help you for your own mind's sake to kind of see these things, what we've covered, and will help answer some of your own questions even. So was so far just a feedback. Did the classes make sense? Anybody felt totally lost? Were the instructions not clear in any shape, way, or form? It's a good feedback because we can always make it better. It is a very thick subject with so much reading, so much material, and you have to present it so that in some people who have never heard it before, you need to relate to them. And there are some people who are intermediate to on the advanced level, and you have to relate to them too. So I go through this cycle of how do I present this and keep the summary going. So there's always this, how does it benefit my mind? How can I improve myself? If those questions are answered, or at least begins to make you want to learn more, then it does its job. It's a fundamental program, right? It's a basic course. There are some advanced level courses after this. And it's very interesting once you get that little understanding, like a little base for it, then it really likes to, you want to go more and more and more into it. All right, that's all I have, unless you have some more questions.
That was it. Those were the last questions that I have.
Okay, I really thank you all for really hanging in there. I know this is a tough subject, but I hope that it's helping you in some way.
Thank you, Hemant.
Thank you, Hemant.
Thank you.
Linda and
Thanks,
Hemant.
Dad. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
See everyone next week.
Bye. Have a good night.
Bye. Bye.
Are we staying, leaving? Yesterday I had class all weekend I had class with Amy, Venerable Amy, on emptiness, on the Tantra, introduction to Tantra. So today I felt a little bit comfortable with the material. Last week I was so lost.
That's good, that's good. That's why it's so good to go through different ways, learn from different things. You every time I learn, I pick up something new. Every time I read it, there's something new.
The thing she said was, I asked her some questions and she said, are you comfortable who you are in your body, mind, and speech? I said, yes, perfectly, right? And then she said, I don't know if she was sarcastic or something, but she said, then you don't need a teacher anymore. I said, I was feeling because I don't want to go too much deep into Tantra. Right. But I feel like I'm learning slowly. I just don't want to jump into enlightenment. I want to learn it slowly.
If a teacher says anything like that, he or she is just trying to help you. It just makes you think. Don't take it anywhere else.
Okay. Yeah, then she suggested, she was nice. I had a good time hanging with all the Shantideva people.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good
All right,
one.
well, have a good night, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
See you next Monday. Bye-bye.